The big talk, I think, really all over Washington over the last several weeks has been this idea of Trump being a dictator. Is he going to be getting revenge and retribution, weaponizing the DOJ, all of this stuff? There's been a lot of think pieces put out. I think the Atlantic put out an entire issue only dedicated to Trump and the dangers of a Trump dictatorship or presidency.
Right.
Yeah. So that's something I wrote about a little while ago and looked at. Okay, is this really realistic? Is something he can do? Obviously, as a president, you do have a lot of power, mainly to appoint people. You can put people in your cabinet positions, things like that. But a lot of the cabinet members even have to get appointed by the Senate.
Right.
There was a lot of issues in the first Trump administration of finding staff members who were willing to really carry out his orders. He didn't really get a lot of purchase with leaders of the military, with courts. Right at the end of 2020 there, when he was trying to overturn, I guess, the election results. So there's a big question of buy-in if Trump really did want to do this.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by White House reporter Haisten Willis. Haisten, it's a new year coming up for President Joe Biden in the White House, well, I guess for the rest of us too. But what are some of the things that they're really looking forward to in the new year?
Yeah, this is going to be obviously the big crucial year, re-election year coming up, 2024. Their top goal, of course, is going to be to get reelected, although that's pretty much always the top goal of any politician who hasn't already announced their retirement.
Right.
The big thing for them, I think, is going to be getting the economy under control, getting the message under control with the economy. I think they need inflation to continue to go down and stay down. It's at 3%. It's close to the 2% target. But I think even if it gets to 2%, people are still going to say inflation is so much higher than they were, 3 years ago, or whatever.
Right.
But if it goes down, that certainly helps them. The Fed can then start lowering interest rates, which they're expected to do. Mortgage rates start to come down. Those things are going to make people feel better from that pressure of high inflation. In theory, they've obviously had this tagline "Bidenomics" out for a while. They kind of shied away from it for a while, and then they've actually started using it again. So I don't know if they're going to use Bidenomics, how much they're going to lean on that or not. But they're going to be, I think, looking at the economy with regard to trying to get reelected. The other thing I think is going to be immigration. That's been a big thing. I think that's starting to cross over a bit. That's always a topic, I think, among Republicans. But I think even independents are becoming more concerned about this. What's really going on here? There's a whole lot of people crossing the border. The Democratic senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, said this is like the city of Pittsburgh coming over, I think, every month or something like that. It's a lot of people. So I think they do want to, I'm guessing, I don't really know, they may want to address that pressure again in an effort to get reelected in November.
Yeah, it's been a big issue that has plagued him for his whole term. Someone else trying to get reelected, albeit non-consecutively, is former President Donald Trump. And some people, some critics at least, say that he may be on a little bit of a revenge tour.
Yeah, the big talk, I think, really all over Washington over the last several weeks has been this idea of Trump being a dictator. Is he going to be getting revenge and retribution, weaponizing the DOJ, all of this stuff? There's been a lot of think pieces put out. I think the Atlantic put out an entire issue only dedicated to Trump and the dangers of a Trump dictatorship or presidency. Yeah. So that's something I wrote about a little while ago and looked at. Okay, is this really realistic? Is something he can do? Obviously, as a president, you do have a lot of power, mainly to appoint people. You can put people in your cabinet positions, things like that. But a lot of the cabinet members even have to get appointed by the Senate. There was a lot of issues in the first Trump administration of finding staff members who were willing to really carry out his orders. He didn't really get a lot of purchase with leaders of the military, with courts. Right at the end of 2020 there, when he was trying to overturn, I guess, the election results. So there's a big question of buy-in if Trump really did want to do this, but the talk is there nonetheless that Trump is this big threat. It's been out there for a long time. It's really been renewed, and he has said some things that are certainly over the top about wanting to get be your retribution, standing in the way of the Biden DOJ, and saying some things that are, again, very hyperbolic and very Trump-like. That have some people worried about what he's going to do if he did get in office.
So one person who's trying to keep him from getting back into office is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, one of Trump's main opponents for the 2024 Republican nomination. DeSantis has had some difficulties with the staffing of his super PAC, which is technically an entirely legally independent and separate entity from the DeSantis campaign, but they have sort of relied a good bit on this political action committee. So have these problems shown some of the limits of what a super PAC can really do for a presidential campaign?
It's a great question. I talked to an analyst about this, and I'll paraphrase a few of the things that the analyst told me I thought were very interesting. Because, yeah, like you said, it was called Never Back Down PAC, or I guess it still is called Never Back Down PAC, which is supporting Ron DeSantis. Super PACs basically emerged in the wake of the 2010 series of 2010 Supreme Court decisions that allowed for unlimited donations from a number of different types of entities, but they have to be legally separate from a campaign. DeSantis really challenged the structure of that with Never Back Down PAC. It was tied in very closely with his official campaign. He actually rode on a Never Back Down branded bus, but he was listed as like a special guest on the bus. You know, it wasn't his bus; he was just a guest on it.
He wasn't driving the bus; he was a passenger.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
You don't really control the super PAC the same way you control your campaign, or you're not supposed to.
Right, and so that's been the theory. A number of sources have come out. There have been, I think, 6 top-level executive resignations within this PAC. I think the bigger picture question here is if this really is the problem for DeSantis specifically, that he had this PAC with this unusual structure, or if the problem really was that his campaign did not go well, and so therefore people are kind of pointing fingers. You know, there's a famous saying about an orphan.
Victory has 1,000 fathers, but defeat is an orphan.
Defeat is an orphan. Yeah, people are pointing fingers because this campaign has not gone well. That's what the analyst I talked to was talking about.
And you don't generally hear players on winning teams complain about the coaches.
Yes, exactly. And it does remind me like a sports team. When the season's going bad, the football coach is a bad person. When the season goes well, you see these kind of puff pieces about how he took the team to church and things like that, right? So things are going poorly, and therefore there's questions about whose fault it is. There has been a legal complaint now filed against this PAC and the unusual structure, but again, I think it's kind of telling that the complaint didn't come out until the campaign has been floundering and there's been a lot of resignations, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see if this is tried again, if this will be a cautionary tale, if people will write it off and say, well, that was just a campaign that didn't go well.
And obviously they still have a chance to not back down in Iowa, which is coming up.
They do. DeSantis has gone all in on Iowa. He's done this for a few months now, really. He's talked about how he's gone to all 99 counties in Iowa. They sent out a bunch of emails about how they did the full Chuck Grassley of going to all the counties in Iowa. That's where he's really focused his energy on. They've had this big door-knocking operation. Interestingly, in DeSantis' book, he talks about his first run for the House, and he and his wife went on in a truck and a motor scooter, I think, and they knocked on all the doors in their district, and they won. So I think that maybe gave DeSantis the idea that door knocking is a really powerful, great way to get votes. So they have this big door knocking operation set up, I think, in conjunction with Never Back Down PAC. But we will see. The polling is not super strong for him. But it won't be too long for now before we get some real solid results.
We'll get some numbers, see if that door knocking really opens the door for him.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thank you, Haisten. You can read Haisten and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.